What if I told you that the traders who make the most money don't trade to win? That sounds insane, right? But the truth is, the world's top traders don't chase victory, they embrace loss. While most people dream of Lamborghinis, six-figure months, and never losing again, the elite are rehearsing pain. They're building muscle where others flinch because they've learned something that changes everything. The market doesn't pay you to be right, it pays you to be real, to stay calm under pressure, to execute when fear takes over. See, average traders worship high win rates. Professionals, they study how to suffer well. They know the market is not a scoreboard, it's a mirror. Every trade you place reflects what's happening inside you: your fear of being wrong, your need for control, your addiction to being validated. So here's the hard truth no one tells you. Until you learn how to lose, intentionally, consciously, and without ego, you'll never win where it counts. Not consistently, not with peace, because in this loser doesn't just survive, he dominates. And if you're ready to stop chasing wins and start building wisdom, then what comes next might just change everything. You've been told that trading is about winning, about stacking green days, about outsmarting the market, about building a flawless system that always gets you in and out at the perfect moment. That's the story most traders chase. But it's a story that ends in burnout, confusion, and eventually regret. Because here's the truth: trading isn't a game of winning, it's a game of control, and not control over the market. That's a fantasy. The market doesn't owe you obedience. It doesn't care how confident you are, how good your analysis looks, or how badly you need a win. It moves how it wants to. It punishes ego. It laughs at impatience. The only thing, the only thing you ever had control over is yourself. And most traders, they lose that battle before they even begin. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever placed a trade not because it made sense, but because you had to? Because you were chasing a feeling? Because you needed to fix a mistake, prove something, or just feel alive again? Have you ever told yourself this one has to work, only to watch it collapse and take a piece of your sanity with it? That's not strategy. That's not edge. That's emotional chaos in disguise. See, the market doesn't test your system, it tests your nervous system. It doesn't just ask, do you know where price might go? It asks, can you sit still when you're uncomfortable? Can you pull the trigger without certainty? Can you lose and not lose your mind? Because every trade you take isn't just a bet on a chart, it's a test of your emotional fitness. It's a mirror reflecting back everything you haven't dealt with: your fear of being wrong, your need to be perfect, your hunger for control. The market is brutally honest. It shows you who you are when pressure hits. This is why most traders never make it, not because they're not smart, not because they didn't learn enough technicals or read the right books. They fail because they think trading is about winning. They think more wins equals more success. But in this game, chasing wins is the fastest way to lose, because the more attached you are to winning, the more vulnerable you become to losing. And the more you resist loss, the more power it has over you. But here's the shift: the breakthrough, the realization that separates those who burn out from those who break through. Trading is not a battle against the market, it's a battle against your own reactions. It's not about being right more often, it's about staying centered when you're wrong. It's about following the process when every cell in your body is begging you to deviate. The best traders don't conquer the market, they conquer themselves. Think about that for a second. Think about what it means to walk away from a trade you wanted to take but knew didn't align with your plan. Think about the discipline it takes to hold a winner without cutting it short, to walk away after a red day without seeking revenge, to take a setup at your lowest point and follow your system with no hesitation. That's not luck. That's not confidence. That's internal control. And that kind of control, it's not built by motivation or hype or feeling good. It's built by showing up when it hurts, by following rules when you'd rather break them, by accepting loss as part of the job, not a threat to your identity. Here's a brutal truth: the market will break you until you stop trying to control it and start trying to master yourself. Because when you let go of the obsession with outcomes, you make space for clarity. When you stop needing to win, you start trading with presence. And when you stop treating every trade like it has to be the one, You finally become free to trade like a professional. Let me tell you a story. There was a trader who made six figures in a month and then gave it all back the next. Not because his system failed, but because he did. He got cocky, started doubling size, ignored his stop, tried to force the market to keep rewarding him. He thought he was in control until the market reminded him who's boss. That trader was me. It took me months to recover, not just financially, but mentally, because what I lost wasn't just money. It was the illusion that I could control outcomes. What I gained instead was the wisdom that I could control myself. And once I learned that, everything changed. So if you're listening to this right now, if you've blown up accounts, revenge traded, overtraded, quit, and restarted 100 times, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you something simple. You don't need to win more. You need to surrender better. Not surrender to failure, not to fear, but surrender to the truth that trading is a performance art of emotional discipline. Your job isn't to predict. Your job is to respond calmly, consistently, with control. So the next time you look at a chart, ask yourself, am I trying to prove something or am I following my plan? Am I trading to feed my ego or to execute my edge? Am I trying to control the market or trying to control myself? Because that answer, that's the difference between those who trade and those who transcend. Let's be honest. If trading was just about logic, most people would be rich by now, but it's not. And if you've ever watched yourself do the exact opposite of what you planned, enter early, exit late, size up after a loss, you already know that something deeper is happening, something primal, something instinctive, something that makes no sense until you realize this. Your brain wasn't built for trading. It was built for survival. See, 200,000 years ago, your ancestors didn't sit in front of monitors watching candlestick patterns. They were out in the wild, dodging predators, hunting for food, trying not to die. And their brains evolved to help them do one thing exceptionally well: react to danger, fast, without thinking. That's where the amygdala comes in, your brain's alarm system. It doesn't care about your trading plan. It doesn't care about your setup. Its job is simple: detect threat, create panic, get you to act now. So when you're in a trade and price suddenly spikes against you, that same ancient wiring kicks in. Your heart rate jumps, your breathing shortens, your vision narrows, your brain floods with cortisol, and in that moment, you're not a trader anymore. You're prey. You're no longer evaluating price action. You're reacting to a perceived life or death event. It doesn't matter that it's just a red candle. Your nervous system thinks you're about to die. Tom Hougaard ran an experiment on himself. He strapped a heart monitor on during a normal trading session. At rest, his heart beat at 65 BPM. During a small winning trade, 72 BPM, but during a losing trade, 138 BPM. That's the kind of heart rate you'd expect if someone was being chased by a lion, not sitting at a desk. But that's what trading does. It hijacks your biology. Now think about trying to make rational decisions in that state. You can't. Because when your heart rate doubles, when your breath goes shallow, when your body is screaming escape, no strategy matters. No mentor's advice comes to mind. No checklist will save you. At that moment, you're a caveman with a mouse in your hand. And that's the truth most traders never learn. You don't trade the market. You trade your own biology. And for some of you, it's even worse. Because if you grew up in a chaotic home, in an unpredictable environment, with emotional instability, your amygdala is already hypersensitive, pre-programmed to overreact. It's not your fault, but it is your challenge. Tom cites a study in his book. Children of divorce are 73% more likely to exit trades early. Why? Because uncertainty isn't just uncomfortable, it triggers trauma. So while you think you're reacting to market volatility, what's actually happening is this: your body is reliving the fear of abandonment, the pain of instability, the chaos of not feeling safe. The chart becomes a symbol, a trigger, a battlefield of unresolved emotion. And that's why trading feels so personal, even though it's not. Here's the worst part. Most traders never realize they're not actually trading the chart. They're trading their childhood. They're trying to fix what their parents broke, trying to control something, anything, because they never felt in control growing up. So when they lose, it doesn't just hurt their account. It threatens their entire identity. But here's the good news. You're not doomed by your biology. You're not stuck in that reactive loop forever because awareness is power. And once you can see the pattern, you can begin to change it. That's why emotional journaling matters, why breathing exercises matter, why training your nervous system matters more than backtesting another indicator, because the market doesn't test your system. It tests your composure. It asks, can you sit with uncertainty and not flinch? Can you follow your rules while your body screams for safety? Can you lose and stay calm enough to act with clarity, not panic? And if you can, that's where trading becomes art. That's where you transcend. That's where you stop reacting and start responding. You stop being the prey. You become the professional. Let me leave you with this. The market doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care how much you know, how good your system is, or how prepared you feel. Because when it spikes against you, it doesn't speak to your intellect, it speaks to your instinct. And until you learn to speak back calmly, until you learn to trade through fear, not against it, you'll keep making the same emotional mistakes again and again. But once you learn this truth, once you accept it, train for it, prepare for it, you become dangerous, not to the market, but to your own limitations. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop fearing losses. You stop acting like a victim of your brain. Um, and you start trading like the market owes you nothing because it doesn't. Every trader remembers their first big loss, not the small red day, not the scratch trade. I'm talking about the one that breaks something inside you, the kind of loss that leaves you staring at the screen, unable to move, breathing shallow, mind racing, heart pounding, account bleeding. That moment is more than a financial setback. It's a psychological fracture. Because in that one brutal experience, something shatters that most new traders don't even realize they were clinging to: the illusion of control. When you first step into the market, you think you're the one making the decisions. You analyze the chart, you plan the setup, you press the button. It all feels like you're in charge. But the market has a way of stripping that illusion violently. And when it does, it doesn't just take your money, it takes your identity. Tom Hougaard tells a story that haunts most traders who hear it. It was October 2008. Markets were in chaos. He was long the FEC 50 pounds per point. Then, out of nowhere, the index collapsed 8% in minutes. A waterfall of fear. He lost 23,000 pounds before he could even react. But here's the part that hits the hardest. The night before, in his trading journal, he wrote, "Market feels toppy, might gap down." He saw it coming. His intuition was screaming at him, but he went long anyway. Why? Because his last three trades were winners, because he felt invincible, because the market had rewarded his recklessness just enough to build false confidence. That's the trap. The market doesn't punish you when you make mistakes. It punishes you when you trust those mistakes too much. And when the hammer finally drops, it drops hard, fast, without warning. It's not just a loss, it's a betrayal. You thought you were safe, you thought you were skilled, you thought you were ready, but the market doesn't care what you think. After that loss, Tom did something most traders can relate to, and few will admit. He sat at his desk, checking his account every 5 minutes, hoping the balance had changed, as if the platform made a mistake, as if the market might apologize, as if the loss wasn't real. It was denial, the bargaining phase of grief. Only this wasn't death. It was ego collapse, and that kind of collapse creates something powerful if you survive it. Tom calls it the flinch. From that day forward, every time the market moved fast, his hands would shake. Literally shake, not a figure of speech, not a metaphor. He had to stop using his mouse and switch to hotkeys because his fingers were no longer reliable under pressure. That's what trauma does. It stays in the body, even when the chart is different, even when the risk is smaller, even when the setup is perfect. Your nervous system doesn't know that. It just remembers the fear. Every trader has a flinch. Most just don't know what it's tied to. For some, it's entering trades late. For others, it's cutting winners too early. For many, it's refusing to take a setup after a loss, even when it's textbook. Not because the strategy changed, but because you changed. Because your brain is doing whatever it can to avoid that feeling again. Here's the hard truth. Your biggest trading mistake probably wasn't a technical one. It was emotional. You ignored a warning, you pushed your size, you got attached to an outcome. And when the market pulled the rug out from under you, it didn't just expose your position, it exposed your story. the story you had about yourself, that you were smart enough, skilled enough, careful enough, that you were in control. But here's the paradox. That first trauma, that first collapse, that moment you lost your sense of safety, it's not the end, it's the beginning. Because it's the first time the market stops being a game. It becomes a teacher, a brutal one, yes, but also a truth teller. It strips away the fantasy. It forces you to confront your ego. It shows you, maybe for the first time, that your real enemy isn't out there on the screen. It's in here, inside you. And if you're willing to face it, not run, not numb it, not bury it, but really face it, that trauma becomes a tool, not for fear, but for clarity. You begin to recognize the signs. You see when your confidence is slipping into arrogance. You notice when your emotions are leaking into your logic. You pause when the pressure builds because you've been burned before and you're not looking to get scorched again. This is how real traders are forged, not in the green days, not in the hot streaks, but in the moments when it all falls apart and they choose to stay, to observe, to learn, to adapt. The first trauma will always be there, but so will the lesson. So here's the question only you can answer. What was your first trauma? And more importantly, what did you do after it? Did you double down and spiral? Or did you slow down and grow? Because one of those paths leads to chaos. The other leads to mastery. And the difference between the two isn't intelligence, it's humility. Let's get something straight. Losing is not a failure. Losing is not the enemy. Losing is the path. And the sooner you stop running from it and start studying it, the sooner you'll start becoming what most traders never do, unshakable. But most people never get there because they treat every red trade like a personal attack. They flinch, they panic, they spiral, not because the setup was wrong, but because they've never been trained for what it feels like to lose. Tom Hougaard realized something most traders never do. The difference between the amateur and the pro isn't the strategy. It's not the indicators. It's not how many monitors they have on their desk. It's how they lose. Amateurs try to avoid it. Pros practice it. Read that again. Professionals rehearse the pain, like athletes take hits in practice, like Navy SEALs simulate failure, like surgeons train for the moment something goes wrong. Because when it happens for real, and it will, they're not shocked. They're ready. Tom built something he called loss therapy. Every Sunday, he'd fund a small trading account with 500 pounds, and his goal, not to grow it, to lose it, deliberately, by Friday. Now, before you dismiss this as insane, hear this. He didn't just throw money away. He didn't take random trades. He traded valid setups, but with oversized positions. He followed his rules, but guaranteed the outcome would be negative. Why? Because he wasn't trying to build profit. He was trying to build capacity. Capacity to feel loss without reacting. Capacity to experience fear without flinching. Capacity to lose without losing himself. It sounds extreme. It is. But it worked. By week 6 of loss therapy, something changed. Real losses stopped hurting. His nervous system had adapted. The sting was gone. The fear faded. He had reprogrammed the meaning of loss in his body. Not failure, not danger, just part of the process. This is what no one teaches you in trading courses. How to lose with dignity. How to sit in discomfort and not panic. How to let the pain in without letting it define you. Because here's the secret most people never learn. Losing is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained, but it has to be intentional. You have to go toward the pain, feel it, study it. Understand how your mind reacts when money disappears, because that's where the real edge is. Think about it like this. You'd never trust a fighter who's never been punched in the face. You'd never trust a pilot who's never flown through turbulence. So why do you trust yourself as a trader if you've never trained for what losing feels like? The best traders aren't fearless. They've just felt fear so many times, it no longer owns them. They've walked through drawdowns. They've stared down their worst days. They've had positions blow up and still showed up the next morning. They've built emotional scar tissue, not to become cold, but to become calm. Not to stop caring, but to stop panicking. Because here's what separates pros from everyone else. They don't fear the red. They expect it. They build systems around it. They make space for it. Mentally, emotionally, and financially. They understand something the average trader refuses to accept. Losses aren't optional, they're inevitable. But suffering, that's a choice. Let me ask you this. What if you trained yourself to lose better than anyone else? What if you made peace with it, not just intellectually, but physically? What if you conditioned your nervous system to handle the pressure, the pain, the sudden reversals without breaking? What would that version of you trade like? How much more composed would you be? How much better would your execution become? How different would your life feel if losing no longer scared you? That's the power of this work. That's the art of losing. It's not about becoming reckless. It's not about accepting failure as fate. It's about embracing the reality that the cost of greatness is discomfort, that success is rented, and the rent is due in red days. You either pay it or quit trying. Tom didn't just stop there. He started printing out screenshots of every emotional loss, what he called his wall of shame, not to humiliate himself, but to remember the cost of trading from fear. Every time he looked up, he didn't see the chart. He saw a reminder. Reacting to pain is more expensive than the pain itself. Look, no one wants to lose. That's human. But the traders who succeed long term, they don't trade to avoid losing. They trade to get better at losing because they know he who loses best wins most. Not in a motivational poster kind of way, in a deep, grounded, unshakable kind of way. So here's the challenge. Don't just study your winners. Study your losses. Record how you felt. Replay the moment you hesitated, flinched, over-leveraged, or exited too soon. And then ask, what can I build here? Because inside every loss is a blueprint for control, for mastery, for the kind of calm that can't be shaken by a number on a screen. And when you master the art of losing, the market loses its power over you. You've probably heard the saying, trading is simple but not easy. But no one tells you why it's not easy. It's not because of the charts. It's not because of the market. It's because you're human. And humans are emotional. And emotions, uncontrolled, are the fastest way to destroy a perfectly good trading plan. You don't lose because of strategy. You lose because you react. You react to a small red candle like it's a threat. You react to a minor loss like it's a failure. You react to being wrong like it's an insult. And in those moments, the trade isn't controlling you. Your nervous system is. It starts subtle. You take a loss. Frustration flickers. You tell yourself it's no big deal, but your breath is shorter. Your jaw's a little tighter. Your mouse clicks feel harder than usual. Then the next setup comes. And instead of waiting for confirmation, you jump in. Why? Because your brain isn't seeking profit anymore. It's seeking relief. It wants the pain gone. It wants redemption. It wants control back. That's not trading. That's emotional hijacking. And if you don't catch it early, it spirals. The logic fades. The rules blur. You're no longer reading the market. You're fighting yourself. And here's the punchline. You lose again. Not because of the market, because of the decision you made after the first loss. That's the real cost of emotional trading. It compounds. One small reaction can cascade into a meltdown, a day lost, a week ruined, an account blown, all because you didn't catch the first crack in your emotional armor. Tom Hougaard calls this moment the emotional circuit breaker. Every pro trader has one. And if you don't, you're just waiting to snap. Tom's trigger is simple but powerful. Whenever he feels pressure rising, he stands up and says, out loud, I am Tom Hougaard, and I'm about to do something stupid. Just hearing himself say it breaks the trance. His rational brain kicks back in. The emotional loop is interrupted. The urge to do something fades. It sounds ridiculous until you try it. One night trading the Asian session, he yelled, "Don't do it, Tom!" So loud the neighbors called the police. When the officer arrived and asked if everything was okay, Tom replied, "Just yelling at myself about a Forex trade." The cop blinked, then said, "Maybe try journaling instead?" Funny, yes, but powerful, because it worked. Tom didn't stop there. He added another layer. He programmed a 60-second delay into his trading platform. Every time he hit buy or sell, the order would wait. 1 full minute. And during that minute, he'd ask himself 3 questions. Is this my setup or my emotion? What would I tell a student to do right now? Can I afford to be wrong here, financially and emotionally? Those 60 seconds, they've saved him over 500,000 pounds in revenge trades. Think about that. A single pause, a brief breath, a tiny moment of awareness can change everything. Because here's the truth. You don't need more indicators. You need more inner space, more room between stimulus and response, more ability to witness your emotions without becoming them. That's the mark of a real trader because the market isn't your enemy. Your reactivity is. It's the part of you that can't stand being wrong, that needs to win to feel worthy, that chases losses like they're personal vendettas. And until you tame that part of yourself, no system will save you. This is what separates the consistent from the chaotic. Not edge, not analysis, emotional awareness. The best traders don't avoid emotion. They observe it. They know when it's creeping in. They know how to name it, pause it, regulate it. They still feel fear, frustration, doubt like everyone else, but they don't react. They respond. There's a difference. Here's a personal truth most won't admit. Every massive loss I've ever taken, every blown day, every spiraled session, didn't come from being wrong. It came from refusing to pause after being wrong. It came from needing to make it back, needing to fix the pain, needing to escape the feeling. The more urgent it felt, the worse I traded, because urgency isn't clarity. It's chaos wearing urgency's mask. So if you've ever found yourself in a revenge trading spiral, if you've ever kept clicking just to get back to even, if you've ever looked and then said, "What the hell am I doing?" You're not broken. You're just untrained. No one taught you how to feel and still function. But you can learn, you can train your circuit breaker. You can build a system not just for price action, but for emotional action. Here's how it starts. Right now, pause, breathe, feel what's in your body. Where is the tension? Where is the fear? Can you name it without needing to fix it? That practice, it's more powerful than any setup. Because when you learn to sit in discomfort, to recognize your reaction before it becomes your behavior, to pause when every part of you wants to press the button, you win, not the trade. You win control. And that's the only win that matters long term. Every trader keeps a journal, or at least they're told they should. So they write down the basics: date, ticker, entry, exit, profit, loss. They log the surface of the trade, but they miss the gold buried underneath. Because the real treasure isn't in the data, it's in the emotion. Tom Hougaard calls it his emotional autopsy. Not just a record of what he did, but how he felt while doing it. Because here's the hard truth. The real reason you keep repeating mistakes isn't because you don't know what to do. It's because you don't know why you do what you do. And if you never investigate the emotional patterns behind your decisions, you'll stay stuck in the same loop. Different trades, same regret. Tom keeps 3 journals, one for trades, one for emotions, one for the trader he wants to become. The second one, the emotional journal, is where the magic happens. It's where he writes things like, felt invincible after first win of the day, chest puffed out, typed aggressively, that should have been my warning. Or, felt pressure to take a trade because I was behind for the week, didn't wait for confirmation, didn't care. That kind of self-awareness, that's edge. Because the market leaves clues, but your emotions leave patterns. And if you track them, if you watch them closely, if you start connecting behavior to feeling to outcome, you build something rare in this game: emotional intelligence, not theory, not fluff. Real world, practical, money saving insight. Tom's journals revealed things that changed the way he traded forever. He discovered that every time he felt invincible, a drawdown was around the corner. He saw that when he typed fast, traded aggressively, or leaned forward in his chair, his win rate plummeted. He noticed that when he skipped journaling for more than 2 days, his patience vanished. He wrote, "Confidence is quiet, ego is loud." That single sentence saved him tens of thousands. And here's the part most people never think to do. He didn't just write about the day, he wrote to his future self. Every night, he left a letter for tomorrow's Tom. Something like, if you wake up anxious, do not take the first setup. Start small, wait for confirmation. Also, go for a walk before the open. You're not a machine. Don't act like one. Those letters became guidance systems, not for his trades, for his mindset. Most traders write notes like they're building a trading system, but what you really need to build is a self-regulation system, because it's not about knowing what the market did, it's about knowing what you did in response and why. Tom reviewed his emotional journals religiously, but here's what made it different. He didn't just review yesterday, he reviewed the same date from 1 year ago, every single day. Why? Because just like markets are seasonal, emotions are too. He noticed patterns. January, overtrading, too much new year, new me energy. August, undertrading, vacation mindset, lack of focus. December, revenge trading, trying to save the year. He also tracked the phrases that showed up most. When I knew I shouldn't take this trade, but he found that sentence 47 times in 2 years. That one phrase cost him over £200,000. Now, if he writes, I knew I shouldn't in his journal, he stops immediately. No buts, no trades, no exceptions. This is the real utility of a trading journal. Not documentation, disruption, not logging what happened, catching what keeps happening. It becomes your pattern detector, your accountability mirror, your post-mortem lab, and eventually your blueprint for mastery. One entry in Tom's journal said, too stressed to focus, trading to escape home drama. Months later, he was divorced, but the journal saw it coming before he did, because trading doesn't happen in a vacuum. Your life leaks into your execution. If your emotional world is in chaos, it'll show up in your charts. And unless you're tracking it, you'll mistake personal pain for market noise. So if you're serious about becoming the kind of trader that lasts, start today. Start small. Ask yourself after every session, what did I feel before that trade? What emotion drove my decision? What physical signs did I ignore? If I had a coach watching me, what would they call out? Write it down. Not for Instagram, not for show, for survival. Because the market is ruthless. It doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't reward your effort, but your journal will, if you let it. Because it's the only place that tells the full truth. What you did, what you felt, what you ignored, what it cost you, and most importantly, what you're going to do differently next time. There's a silent killer in trading. It doesn't show up on charts. You won't find it in the economic calendar. It doesn't trigger stop losses or create slippage, but it ruins more traders than any indicator ever could. It's the belief that your worth is tied to your results. Most traders live and die by their P&L. Green day, they walk taller, smile wider, feel like they've finally figured it out. Red day, they slump in their chair, question everything, feel like imposters. It's not just about money, it's about identity. And that's where everything starts to break. Because the second you attach your self-worth to your performance, you become emotionally fused to every tick. Suddenly, a trade isn't just a trade, it's a referendum on you. A stop out isn't just a loss, it's a personal insult. A missed winner isn't just bad luck, it's shame. A losing day isn't just part of the business, it's failure. And once you go there, you're no longer trading with clarity. You're trading with a bruised ego and something to prove. Tom Hougaard knows this trap well. After one strong quarter, he bought a new car. The license plate said Trader 1. He wore shirts that said Eat Pips for Breakfast. His Twitter bio, full-blown trading identity. And then the drawdown came. 6 months of losses, and suddenly the car felt like a lie. The clothes, a costume. The bio, a punchline. He was a trader with nothing to show, and it hurt deep. Because he wasn't just losing money, he was losing himself. The breaking point? He showed up to a trading conference wearing a shirt that said, I Forex, after losing 30,000 pounds that month. Someone looked at him and said, why do you love something that clearly hates you? He laughed on the outside, but something snapped on the inside. He went home and threw away every piece of clothing that had anything to do with trading. Not out of rage, but out of recognition, because here's what he finally realized. He was using trading to feel like someone, to prove something, to be enough. And as long as that was true, he was never going to be free. So he did something radical. He started detaching. He changed the language he used. Instead of I lost today, he said the system experienced a drawdown. Instead of I crushed that trade, he said the setup worked as expected. Weird, maybe, but effective? Absolutely. Because the more he distanced himself from the outcome, the more clearly he could see the process. He even changed his passwords from winning 2015 to process not profit, from trading king dial to just data 2016. Every time he logged in, it was a reminder, you are not your results. You are your process. And then something beautiful happened. He started having profitable days and feeling nothing. No fist pumps, no dopamine high, just calm. He would check his P&L at the end of the day and go, oh, that was good, and then move on with his evening. That's freedom. Because here's the paradox. The less you care about winning, the more consistently you'll win. Not because you're indifferent, but because you're no longer driven by the need to win. You're driven by execution, discipline, process. And those are things you can control. Most traders chase outcomes. They obsess over green, They fear red. They live on the emotional roller coaster of hope and shame. But real traders, they show up, they execute, they let the chips fall where they may, because they've stopped trying to extract meaning from results and started building confidence from consistency. So here's the challenge. Stop asking, how much did I make today? Start asking, how well did I follow my process today? Because the truth is, profit is a lagging indicator. Discipline is a leading one. Let me ask you something. Would you still trade the exact same way if no one could ever see your results? No screenshots, no posts, no one watching. Would you still show up with the same intensity, the same care, the same focus? If the answer is no, you're not trading, you're performing. And performance is fragile. It's exhausting. It's based on approval. Process is different. Process is solid. It's internal. It's yours. That's what makes you unstoppable. So write this down, a sticky note, a whiteboard, a screensaver, anything. I am not my P&L, I am my process. Say it every morning, repeat it after every trade. Make it your personal mantra, because when you believe that truly, losses shrink, wins stabilize, and you stop riding the emotional waves that ruin most traders. Tom's best trading days now? They feel like any other day, because his mission is no longer to win. It's to execute with dignity, to lose with peace, to win without ego, and to detach completely from outcomes. That's not just trading, that's freedom. It always starts the same way, a clean chart, a solid setup, you've done your homework, you're in position, everything lines up, and then boom, out of nowhere you get stopped out. Just a pip too early, just a second too late. The market twitches and your edge evaporates. It's a small loss, one you can handle, but something feels wrong. Not with the trade, with you. Your stomach turns, your jaw tightens, that voice in your head whispers, that wasn't fair. It was a fake out. I'm getting it back. You tell yourself it's no big deal, you pull up another chart, and before you know it, you're back in. But this time, it's not about the setup anymore. It's about revenge. And now, you're not trading the market, you're trading your anger. Tom Hougaard has been there, December 2012, a setup he'd waited for all week. Textbook entry, clear stop, strong confluence. He takes the trade, the market drops, stops him out, then immediately reverses and runs 300 pips in his direction. Perfect setup, perfect idea. Wrong timing by 1 pip. He didn't walk away. He snapped, doubled position size, abandoned the stop, started clicking on every pair that moved. 6 hours later, 62,000 pounds gone, an entire year's profit wiped. Not because the strategy failed, but because he did. Because his ego couldn't let go of the insult. That's what revenge trading really is. It's not about money. It's about wounded pride. Something inside you gets triggered, something deeper than the chart. And now the trade isn't just a trade, it's a statement. I won't be disrespected. I need to prove I'm right. I can't let the market do that to me. You start chasing the candle, but really you're chasing control. And the more you chase it, the more you lose it. After that day, Tom tried to act normal. He went to dinner with his wife, pretending nothing happened. Big smile, jokes, small talk, until she looked at him and said, "You revenge traded again, didn't you?" Caught. Your fake smile only shows up after big losses. Even his face had tells. That's the thing about emotional trading. You can't hide from it. Not in your execution, not in your energy, not in your relationships. It bleeds into everything. So Tom did something drastic. He created a wall of shame. Screenshots of every revenge trade, printed, taped to the wall above his monitor. Not to punish himself, but to remember the cost of letting emotion drive the bus, the cost of reacting instead of resetting, the cost of being right instead of being responsible. Some traders keep vision boards. Tom keeps failure boards. Why? Because he understands this. Motivation fades, but consequences stick. Every morning he looks at those charts, not to relive the loss, but to honor the lesson. So let's talk about you. Have you ever sat in front of your screen, clicking, scanning, searching, not for a high probability setup, but for vengeance? It's not even conscious most of the time, but you feel it, that heat in your chest, that voice in your head, that need to win now. Let me ask you this. When you lose, what's your next move? Do you breathe? Do you step back? Do you reset? Or do you reload, size up, and throw discipline out the window? Because that's the difference between professionals and gamblers. It's not who loses. It's how they respond to loss. Tom's revenge trades all had the same pattern. He'd place them faster, with bigger size, with less clarity, and always after an unexpected loss. And when he finally saw that clearly, he made a rule. I don't place a trade within 15 minutes of a loss. No exceptions. That window became a buffer. Time to breathe, time to journal, time to reset his nervous system. That simple delay saved him thousands. But here's the deeper truth. Revenge trading isn't about the market, it's about your unresolved emotions, your need to be right, your fear of being weak, your craving for justice. And until you deal with those, the spiral will always be waiting. You'll trade well when things go well, but the moment things go wrong, you'll flip. Unless you train for it, unless you build a system for your emotions, not just your entries, unless you stop making the market responsible for your feelings. Tom writes this line in his journal often: reacting to pain costs more than the pain itself. Let that sink in. The initial loss didn't destroy him. His reaction did. The trade was just a scratch. His revenge turned it into surgery. So the next time you lose, before you reload, before you double down, before you tell yourself, I'll just make it back real quick, pause. Ask, am I trading the market or trading my ego? Am I trying to win or trying to not feel like a loser? That awareness, that pause, it could save your week, your month, your career. Here's the truth. The market doesn't care about your feelings, but it reflects them perfectly. So if you want different outcomes, don't just change your strategy, change your response. Because if you don't master that, you'll spend your whole career fighting ghosts. Every trader loses. The difference is some suffer, some spiral, some shatter every time a red number hits the screen, but others don't. They breathe, they reset, they move on. Same loss, different relationship to it. That's the secret no one tells you. You can't escape losses, but you can escape the suffering. Because loss is built into the game. It's the gravity of trading. It's part of the structure. It's not a glitch in the system. It is the system. Losses are baked into every edge. Even the best setups, even the most disciplined plans, you will lose. Tom Hougaard knows this truth intimately. His worst streak, 23 losing trades in a row. 23. Not because he abandoned his strategy, not because he lost focus, but because the market just wasn't aligned. His system had been back-tested through this kind of environment. It was statistically normal, expected even, but knowing that didn't make it easy. Trade 15, he started questioning the system. Trade 18, he started questioning himself. Trade 20, he was numb. But trade 24, that's when something shifted. Because by that point, not out of weakness, out of wisdom, he realized something most traders never do. My job isn't to win, it's to show up, to follow the plan, to execute with integrity, no matter what the scoreboard says. And so with no excitement, no hope, and no pressure, he took trade 24. It won. So did trade 25 and trade 26. The streak reversed. But something deeper remained: the detachment, the discipline, the calm. He had finally understood the lesson that changes everything. I am not here to avoid red. I am here to respond to it with grace. Most traders suffer not because they lose, but because they resist losing. They carry expectations like baggage. They believe a green day means they're good, and a red day means they're a fraud. So when losses come, they fight, they try to escape, they blame, flinch, panic, or force. But the ones who last, they surrender. Not to the market, to the truth. Because trading doesn't reward emotion, it rewards execution. And execution under pressure requires one thing above all: emotional maturity. Tom has a post-it note on his screen that reads, I am paid to place orders, not to be right. Let that sink in. Your paycheck as a trader is not tied to outcomes. It's tied to consistency, to showing up, to doing what your edge demands, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because discomfort is part of the job. Losses, part of the rhythm. You don't eliminate them. You learn to carry them well. Like a soldier carries weight, like an athlete carries fatigue, like a monk carries silence, with purpose, with presence, without complaint. The goal is not to remove pain, it's to remove the reaction to pain. Because once you stop suffering from loss, you start seeing it clearly. It's no longer a threat, it's just data, just another candle, another trade, another part of the curve. The day you stop fearing loss is the day your clarity returns. The day you stop avoiding pain is the day your strength begins. Because that's what real trading is. It's not about winning, it's about staying whole through the wins and the losses. Let me ask you something. What if your next losing streak was the one that finally made you bulletproof? What if the pain you're avoiding holds the exact lesson you need? What if your growth doesn't come after the losses end, but through the process of enduring them? Tom journaled something after one of his toughest weeks. Lost money, kept dignity. That's a win. That one line says everything. Because money comes and goes, but dignity, that stays, that builds, that becomes your foundation. So here's your challenge. The next time you lose, don't rush to recover. Don't spiral. Don't self-judge. Instead, pause. Ask, did I follow my rules? Did I trade with integrity? Did I stay aware of my emotional state? If the answer is yes, you didn't lose. You executed. You honored the process. You did your job because you are not your P&L. You are not your last trade. You are not the score. You are your process. And that identity, that quiet, grounded commitment, it's the most powerful edge in the market. Loss is inevitable, but suffering, that's optional. Choose peace. Choose patience. Choose presence. Because in the end, the ones who win are the ones who learn how to lose better than anyone else. At some point, if you stay in this game long enough, something strange starts to happen. Trading stops being about money. It stops being about setups. It stops being about winning, and it becomes something else entirely, a mirror, a ritual, a practice. Because you realize that what the market reflects isn't just price movement. It's you, your fear, your pride, your need to prove, your struggle to let go. And if you're paying attention, if you're honest, if you're brave, trading becomes more than a job, more than a skill, more than a scoreboard. It becomes a path. Tom Hougaard didn't start this way. He started like everyone else, driven by profit, fascinated by freedom, obsessed with performance. But over time, after enough pain, enough lessons, enough losses, he stopped chasing outcomes and started pursuing presence. His morning routine reflects that. He wakes up at 4:45 a.m., no alarm, his body just knows. He sits in silence at his desk, monitors off, eyes closed, not scanning charts, not scrolling Twitter, meditating, because he's not just preparing for market volatility, he's preparing for emotional volatility. At 5:20 a.m., he writes down 3 things he's grateful for, even after a losing day, especially after a losing day. At 5:30 a.m., he reviews his trades from the day before. No judgment, no self-shaming, just quiet reflection. Then he sets an intention for the day. I don't trade to take, I trade to stay awake. And before he turns on his screens, he does something almost no one talks about. He bows, not to superstition, not to habit, but to humility. He bows to the market, the same way a martial artist bows to the dojo, the same way a monk bows before meditation, not because the market deserves reverence, but because the process does. Because once you truly see what trading demands, once you recognize what it pulls out of you, you stop seeing it as a hustle, and you start seeing it as a spiritual discipline, a practice of presence, a test of emotional awareness, a daily challenge to remain calm while chaos surrounds you. Tom shares this story often. One day he made 50,000 pounds. He should have been elated, but he felt nothing, empty. Another day he lost 5,000 pounds, and he felt peaceful, grounded, clear. That's when he realized, I'm not trading for money anymore. I'm trading for mastery. I'm trading to meet myself every day. That kind of detachment isn't numbness. It's not cold. It's not cynical. It's clarity. It's the ability to show up fully without being addicted to the result. That's what spiritual practice looks like. Think about it. Monks sit for hours in silence, training their minds to let thoughts pass without reaction. Surgeons rehearse the same cut, the same movement, the same rhythm until it's muscle memory. Pilots run the same simulator drills even when they already know the outcome. Why? Because mastery lives in repetition, in presence, in letting go of ego over and over again. And trading, it's no different. You show up every day not to beat the market, not to avoid red, not to feel good, but to witness yourself, to observe your habits, your impulses, your inner dialogue, to face discomfort without distraction, without denial. The market becomes your meditation mat, your dojo, your mirror. It doesn't care how you feel, doesn't care what you want. It just reflects, tick by tick, candle by candle, your patience, your fear, your need for control, your level of awareness. Tom once tracked this fascinating stat. On days he meditated for under 10 minutes, his win rate was 43%. On days he meditated 10 to 20 minutes, 52%. And on days he went 20 plus minutes deep, 58%. Now, did meditation make the market move in his favor? Of course not. But it changed him, and that changed everything because the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be present, to trade from center, not from survival, to act instead of react, to detach instead of chase, to observe instead of obsess. That's what this really is. Not a game, not a hustle, not a career, a calling, one that demands emotional mastery, spiritual resilience, and deep self awareness. So if you're here, if you're still listening, ask yourself, what am I really doing this for? Is it the money, or the freedom, the recognition, or is it something deeper? A desire to evolve, to grow, to strip away the noise and face the truth of who you are every day on a screen under pressure. Because if you treat trading like a spiritual practice, a place to grow, to refine, to return to presence, then even your losses will serve you. Even the pain will sharpen you. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you weren't just building a trading account. You were building a person, one trade at a time. Every time you place a trade, a quiet voice speaks up inside you. If it wins, the voice says, "See, you're smart, you're talented, you're meant for this." But if it loses, that same voice hisses, "Maybe you're not good enough, maybe you're a fraud, maybe you just got lucky before." That voice isn't logic, it isn't reason, it's identity. And until you learn to separate who you are from what your last trade did, you'll always be vulnerable. Not to the market, but to yourself. Most traders don't just risk capital, they risk self-worth. They walk into every session with their ego in the crosshairs. So every red candle isn't just market movement, it's personal failure. Every loss cuts deeper than dollars. It cuts into identity, and that's when trading stops being a profession and starts becoming a performance. Tom Hougaard fell into this trap. He didn't just trade, he became a trader. He branded it. License plate, Trader One clothing with pips and candlesticks. Twitter bios that screamed confidence. It was his persona, his pride, his public badge of honor. But then came the drawdowns, the slumps, the losing months, and suddenly all those external symbols felt like a joke. He tells a story, painful, but honest. He was at a trading conference wearing a shirt that said, "I at Forex." He had just lost 30,000 pounds that month. A fellow attendee looked at him and asked, "Why do you love something that clearly hates you?" It was a joke, but it hit hard because it wasn't just his account that felt empty, it was his identity. So he made a decision. He threw it all away, the merch, the slogans, the ego, not to punish himself, but to reclaim himself, because he finally saw the truth. If your sense of self is built on outcomes, then you'll never be stable. And that realization, it changed everything. He started referring to himself in the third person when journaling. Instead of, "I lost this trade," he wrote, "The system experienced a drawdown." Instead of, "I crushed it," he wrote, "The edge played out." It sounds silly, but it worked because it created space, a buffer between his actions and his identity, between his performance and his worth. He even changed his passwords from ego-driven ones like winning 2015, trading King Dollar to ones like just data 2016, process not profit. Every login became a mantra, a reminder, I am not my P&L, I am my process. Here's the hard truth. If your value rises and falls with your equity curve, you'll never have peace. You'll fear red days like they're judgment days. You'll celebrate green days like you've proven something, and you'll stay trapped in a game you can't win. Because the real battle isn't on the screen. It's in your self-image. That's why detachment isn't just a nice idea. It's survival. Because the more your identity fuses with your results, the more pressure you create, and the more pressure you carry, the worse you'll perform. Not because you lack skill, but because you're afraid to be wrong. But when you detach, when you make peace with being just a person executing a plan, not a genius, not a fraud, just a human, you become dangerous. You become free. You show up, you trade, you execute, and you let go. Some of Tom's best trading days, he barely remembers them because they didn't define him. They were just another showing up, just another opportunity to act with integrity, to express his edge with no drama. He wasn't chasing identity, he was anchored in discipline. And that difference, that separation, it's everything. Let me ask you something. Would you still trade the same way if no one could ever see your results? No Instagram posts, no likes, no external praise, just you and your process. Would you still commit? Would you still execute? Would you still care? If the answer is no, then you're not trading. You're performing. And performance is exhausting. It's fragile. It needs validation to survive. But process is quiet. Process is stable. Process doesn't need applause. It just needs presence. So here's your challenge. The next time you win, don't celebrate like you proved something. The next time you lose, don't collapse like you lost yourself. Just breathe, review, log the trade, log the emotion, then move on. Because you're not your last trade. You're not your worst trade. You're not even your best trade. You're the one placing the trade, observing it, learning from it. You are not your trade. You are the trader. And the more you live from that truth, the more calm you'll feel, the more consistent you'll become, the more freedom you'll have, no matter what the market does. Because you're no longer trying to become a trader. You've already become the kind of person who trades with peace. And that's what this journey is really about. You think you're trading charts, but really you're trading yourself. The market doesn't just respond to your entries and exits, it responds to your fears, your history, your emotional baggage. You want to know who you are. Watch how you trade, because the market is more than a playground, more than a battlefield. It's a therapist, one that never speaks, but always reflects. Every time you hit buy or sell, you're not just engaging with price, you're revealing a pattern, a wound, a trigger, a truth you've been avoiding. And the market, cold, indifferent, brutally honest, will keep showing it to you again and again until you finally pay attention. Tom Hougaard discovered this the hard way. One trade, just one trade, made him cry, not because of the money, not because of the setup, but because of what it showed him. He cut profits early on GBP USD for the 20th time, same level, same hesitation, same emotional flinch. And in that moment, something clicked. He flipped through his journal and saw the same sentence over and over. Took profits early, couldn't hold, market might reverse. But it wasn't fear of reversal, it was fear of having something good and losing it. Then it hit him. I'm not afraid of the market taking my gains. I'm afraid that good things don't last. And just like that, the market exposed something deeper than a trading flaw. It exposed his childhood. Tom's father walked out when he was 8. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. And somewhere deep in his nervous system, Tom had decided, don't get too comfortable. Don't trust stability because it always disappears. So years later, in front of a Forex chart, his brain didn't see pips. It saw abandonment. And it did what it always does, protected him. Not logically, not helpfully, but predictably. He began connecting other trading behaviors to childhood patterns. Cutting winners too early, fear of abandonment. Holding losers too long, trying to fix the unfixable, just like he tried to fix his broken home. Overtrading, crying out for validation, for attention. Revenge trading, unprocessed rage toward authority, toward power he couldn't control. At first, it was hard to accept, uncomfortable, even embarrassing. But then, it became liberating because he realized every destructive habit I had in the market was a coping mechanism I never questioned. And suddenly, trading wasn't just technical anymore. It was therapeutic. Tom actually hired a real therapist, one who specialized in traders. First session, she asked, "Tell me about your relationship with disappointment." Tom laughed, thinking she meant stopouts. But she didn't. She meant his father, his unmet expectations, his lifelong drive to prove he was worthy by being right. By session 3, he was in tears, not over the £127,000 loss, not over the blown accounts, but over the 8-year-old boy who never got to feel safe. And the realization that every trade, every risk, every flinch was that boy still trying to earn security. That's when it hit him. The market was never punishing me, it's replaying the script I hadn't rewritten. And that became his mission. Not just to trade better, but to trade cleaner. Not from pain, not from fear, but from clarity. He began journaling not just his trades, but his emotions behind them. Not just P&L, but pain and peace, tension and relief, triggers and breakthroughs. He called it his emotional map. One entry read, "Took an impulsive trade after argument with wife, needed to feel in control." Another felt like a failure after 2 losses, overtraded to restore self-worth. Another still, couldn't hold my winner, felt too good, didn't think I deserved it. Reading those entries months later, he didn't see mistakes. He saw messages, clues, guides. Every trade I took from pain was a breadcrumb back to the wound I hadn't healed. That's why he says, the market is a therapist, but only if you listen, because it doesn't yell, it doesn't diagnose, it doesn't care, it just reflects. Trade after trade, reaction after reaction, lesson after lesson. So if you want to grow as a trader, don't just study charts, study yourself. Ask better questions. Why do I need to be right so badly? Why do I chase after losses? Why does silence on the screen make me anxious? Why do I self-sabotage right after a win? Because the answers aren't out there, they're in here. The charts are your mirror, the losses are your clues. The market is your therapist, and the sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop bleeding in silence and start healing in awareness. Most traders journal like accountants, entries, exits, lot size, win rate. Useful? Maybe. Transformational? Never. Because the numbers never lie, but they also never tell the full truth. If you want to know why you keep making the same mistakes, why the losses sting so deeply, why you self-sabotage right after a win, you need a different kind of journal, not a trade log, an emotional autopsy. That's what Tom Hougaard created. 3 notebooks, 3 very different purposes. Notebook 1, trade log. Just the basics, entries, exits, setups. Notebook 2, emotional journal, the real story, what he felt and when he felt it. Notebook 3, letters to his future self, advice, warnings, encouragement, not for ego, for memory. Because when you're in the moment, your mind is clouded. But when you write it down, you see with clarity, not just what happened, but who showed up in that moment. The patient trader, the revenge-fueled gambler, the scared kid. And every time you do this, you map your emotional terrain. Tom called it pattern recognition for the soul. Here's a real entry from his emotional notebook. Felt invincible after my first trade hit 2Rs, puffed out, typed aggressively, then I doubled my size on the next one, got stopped out immediately, felt violated, like the market punished my confidence. Lesson, confidence is quiet, ego is loud. Another one, after a losing streak, felt numb, took 3 trades in 15 minutes, not from edge, just from panic. I needed to feel alive. Trading became my drug. These weren't just journal entries, they were emotional fingerprints, proof of what actually drove his decisions, proof that had nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with state of mind. And here's the part most traders never do. Tom didn't just journal today, he reread yesterday, last week, exactly 1 year ago. Why? Because markets are seasonal, but emotions are too. He discovered patterns he never expected. Every January, overtrading, chasing that new year, new me energy. Every August, undertrading, vacation mindset, lack of focus. Every December, revenge trading, trying to save the year with one big winner. But the most painful discovery? Across 2 years of journals, he found the same sentence 47 times. I knew I shouldn't take this trade, but, and that phrase, those 5 words, cost him over 200,000 pounds. So he made a rule. Anytime he writes, I knew I shouldn't in his journal, he stops. No but. No exception. Just stop. This is what real journaling does. It becomes your accountability partner, your mentor, your emotional mirror. Not to punish you, but to protect you. And it doesn't just save money. It saves your sanity. Because when things go wrong, when your strategy breaks, when your confidence fades, when you spiral into a self-doubt pit, you have evidence, written proof that this has happened before, and that you survived. Tom even credits his journal with predicting the collapse of his marriage. The signs were there: too stressed to focus, trading to escape home drama, wife's upset again, I'm numb. And when he finally addressed the chaos at home, his trading improved immediately because the market was reflecting not just charts, but life. That's the secret. The market always leaves clues, but it only speaks to those who record them, review them, and reflect on them with brutal honesty. So what's stopping you? Is it the time it takes, the vulnerability it requires, the fear of what you might find? Because here's the truth. You already know your worst habits. You already feel the pain they cause. The only question is, will you face them on purpose or let them blindside you again? Start with this. After every trade, ask, what was I feeling before I entered? What story was I telling myself during the trade? What did I feel after I exited? What would I tell a friend who made this same decision? Write it all down, not to be perfect, but to be aware, because awareness is the beginning of control. You don't need a guru. You don't need a new indicator. You don't need another YouTube video. You need yourself, your patterns, your truth, your growth, recorded, revisited, repeated. Tom says it best. My journal became my edge, not because it made me smarter, but because it made me honest. So if you're still wondering why you keep making the same emotional mistakes, why your trading hasn't evolved, why you feel like you're running in circles, check your journal. And if you don't have one, that's where the cycle begins and where your breakthrough could begin too. Most people come to trading chasing an outcome, freedom, money, status, escape. And there's nothing wrong with that at first, but the ones who stay, the ones who last, they discover something far deeper. Trading is not just a career, it's a path, a mirror, a spiritual practice. Because at some point, you realize this game isn't about beating the market, it's about mastering yourself. Tom Hougaard learned this not in his first year, not after his first big win, but after his most empty one. He made £50,000 in a single day. Everything clicked, textbook trades, flawless execution. But when the session ended, he felt nothing, no joy, no pride, just silence. The next day, he lost £5,000, and weirdly, he felt peace. That's when it hit him. It was never about the money, it was about the presence. Because trading, real trading, requires you to show up completely, present, aware, calm, in control of your impulses, detached from results, tuned into the moment. And what else demands that? Meditation, martial arts, spiritual devotion. That's when Tom stopped treating trading as a hustle and started treating it like a practice. His morning routine began to shift, not to get an edge, but to prepare his mind. 4:45 a.m., wake up without an alarm. 5 a.m., silent meditation facing his screens, monitors off. 5:20 a.m., write down 3 things he's grateful for. 5:30 a.m., review yesterday's trades without judgment. 5:45 a.m., set his daily intention. I trade to stay awake, not to take. And then, the part that seems strange but changed everything. Before sitting down, he bows to his trading station, like a martial artist entering a dojo, like a monk entering a temple, not out of superstition, out of respect. Respect for the challenge, for the craft, for the market as his teacher, because that's what it had become. Not an opponent, not a cash machine, but guide. Tom realized the market doesn't care about your goals, it only cares about your growth. It will test you, break you, humiliate you, not to destroy you, but to wake you up. And if you let it, it will refine you, not into someone who always wins, but into someone who doesn't need to. Because mastery isn't about outcomes, it's about how you show up when everything is on the line. Tom started tracking his meditation minutes with the same precision as his trades. What he found was profound. 0 to 10 minutes, 43% win rate, 10-20 minutes, 52% win rate, 20 plus minutes, 58% win rate. But that wasn't the point. The win rate was just a side effect. The real change? Presence. On high meditation days, he didn't chase, he didn't flinch, he didn't need, he was just there, watching, acting with clarity, accepting with peace. That's why trading for him became spiritual, because every tick was a test. Can you stay conscious? Can you stay composed when your instincts scream for escape? Can you breathe through the chaos instead of reacting to it? That's mastery, not perfection, but peace in the presence of pressure. He tells the story of a student who asked, "How will I know when I've made it?" Tom answered, "The day you don't care if you've made it." Because that's when the ego dissolves. That's when you stop trading to prove something and start trading to practice something. Discipline, awareness, growth. In that sense, every trade is a prayer. Every loss is a lesson. Every win is a whisper. Stay humble, stay present, stay awake. So if you're still treating trading like a shortcut, a lottery ticket with candlesticks, you're missing the real treasure. The profit is nice, the lifestyle is cool, but the gift is who you become. Tom says it best. Some days the market pays me, some days it doesn't, but I always pay myself with awareness, discipline, and truth. So let the charts humble you, let the process sharpen you, let the pressure polish you, because in the end, trading might not just change your bank account, it might change your life. Here's the truth you've been circling this entire time. Through the flinches, the meltdowns, the highs, the recoveries, every trader loses. Every single one. Even the greats. Even the legends. Loss is not a flaw in the game. It is the game. But here's where the path splits. Some traders suffer with every red candle. Others simply breathe. The difference isn't their strategy, it's their relationship with losing. You see, the final shift doesn't come from a new edge, a better platform, or a tighter stop loss. It comes from a quiet, powerful decision. I accept that I will lose. I just refuse to suffer because of it. Tom Hougaard lived through this. His record-breaking losing streak, 23 trades in a row. Back-tested edge, solid. Execution, disciplined. Emotions, tested to the limit. By trade 10, he started doubting the market. By trade 15, he doubted himself. By trade 20, he didn't care anymore. But trade 24, that's when something unexpected happened. He took it, not with hope, not with fear, but with neutrality, with peace. I don't need this trade to win, he told himself. I just need to place it with integrity. And that trade, it won. So did the next, and the one after that. The streak broke. But more importantly, the pattern of suffering ended. Because here's the ultimate truth of this game. You are not paid to win. You are paid to act with discipline under pressure, to stay present in the storm, to trust your process, especially when it hurts, to let go of the fantasy that trading is about being right. It's not. It's about showing up fully, even when you're wrong. Tom wrote a note to himself after that streak. I am paid to place orders, not to be right. He taped it to his screen. It's still there today, because it reminds him of the shift from attachment to detachment, from outcome to execution, from suffering to peace. And that's the shift you must make. You cannot control the market. You cannot control the outcome of any single trade, but you can control this, your breath, your process, your decisions, your mindset. You can control you. Losing is inevitable. It's built into the structure. Your job is not to escape it. Your job is to respond to it with wisdom. And once you do, the fear dissolves, the pain shrinks. The red days become just data, not trauma. You stop fighting the market and start dancing with it. Not every dance is graceful, but every step teaches you something. So here's your final invitation. Put a note on your monitor, just like Tom. Write this: I am not my P&L. I am my process. Let that be your compass. And for 1 week, just one, judge yourself only on execution, not results. Green day, ask, did I follow my rules? Red day, ask, did I honor my process? That's it. That's how pros are born. You don't become a master by winning. You become a master by surviving without losing yourself, by enduring what others escape from, by facing the mirror when it hurts the most. Because in this game, the ones who win are the ones who lose better. So now the real question. When the bell rings tomorrow and you stare into the charts, what version of yourself will show up? The anxious version that needs to win, or the grounded version who shows up regardless? Will you chase, or will you execute? Will you react, or will you respond? Will you suffer, or will you surrender? Remember this: the market opens again tomorrow and it'll ask you the same question it always does. Who are you when the pressure comes? Now you have the answer. You are not a gambler, not a hero, not a victim. You are a process-driven professional, and you're ready to lose like a master so you can win like one. End with, trade well, lose better, live free. If you've made it this far, you're not like most traders. You're not chasing hype. You're not looking for shortcuts. You're here because something in you knows this game is bigger than just wins and losses. It's about who you become when the pressure hits. So here's your next step. Write this down and stick it to your screen. I am not my P&L. I am my process. And if you're ready to go deeper, to stop gambling and start evolving, subscribe. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for the version of you who's finally ready to let go of the noise and trade with calm, clarity, and control. Drop a comment below that simply says loser, not because you are one, but because you're brave enough to learn like one. And if you know a trader who needs this, send them this video. Don't explain. Just share the mirror. The best traders aren't born. They're forged in loss, in discipline, and in truth. So trade well, lose better, live free.